everybody, and welcome back to Uninvisible and Invisible Illness Awareness Project. Last week I was talking about my experience with the IUD. I actually recorded that video just a few weeks after having my IUD removed, and I wanted to really be sure of the results before I posted them. So now it's been a couple months and I wanted to add to that, but that video was getting a bit long, so I split this into part 2. A few details that I left out last time were a few other side effects that I had from the IUD. I mentioned that for the first year I had a lot of cramps every time I got my period. What I forgot to bring up was that there was also a time where I was having a discharge, which was nothing that looked or smelled like an infection, but it was noticeable, especially because right after my period would end, there would be a few days where I wouldn't have that. So I could tell that it had something to do with the IUD and that whatever that was being expelled when I was on my period. I want to say that went on for maybe about a year, and then the latest issue I've had has been some sort of a smell. I did go to the doctor and get tested and confirm that there was no infection at that point, and there was a little trick that I had that would get rid of the smell temporarily, but then it would come back. So again, I could tell that this was coming from the IUD. So again, I had the feeling that either this was coming from the IUD or it's just an overall imbalance from being sick. However, all of those side effects I have not noticed anymore since having it removed. The major emotional, hormonal difference that I noted in the last video really had an effect on my romantic life. And I understand how that can come across as, maybe that's just how I am in relationships, and, how do you really know that it's just the IUD? I just wanted to clarify that this person that I'm talking about had done a lot of things in the past where I should have ended it right then. The moment where I just felt so disrespected that I shouldn't have let it continue beyond that, yet I did because of how out of control my emotions were with the IUD. So the event that I mentioned where it ended, that is definitely not by any stretch anything new or huge. Considering what we've been through, that was a pretty mild occurrence. So for me to then say, okay, that's it, it's over, I've had enough, I'm absolutely certain that if I had still had the IUD in that moment, I still would have been clinging on to him with everything I had, like I did the entire time that I had the IUD. And there have been no other major changes in my life or diet or anything like that that would have accounted for that. However, I did notice another major emotional improvement that I wanted to share with you guys, which has nothing to do with my romantic life. Of course, I'm glad that this situation has improved, but I'm also glad that I have another example of how removing the IUD has improved my life, because of course you can say that love is blind and maybe that's just how I get when I get attached to somebody, but in this case it's very clearly got nothing to do with that. And the situation is, I had made a trip to the States the end of 2013 for a couple weeks and mid 2015 for a couple weeks, so about 18 months apart. Both of those trips were only 2 to 3 weeks long. But after just a few days, I already started to feel really uncomfortable. Like I just couldn't wait to get back to Germany. And in 2015, even though I was still working, my health had already significantly declined and the trip itself was really hard. So ever since then, I've really been dreading the idea of making another trip back because I was afraid that the flight itself would be extremely rough, that I would be miserable, that I wouldn't have the strength to deal with walking through the entire airport with my bags, and that I would just crash so hard once I got in and really be bedbound, especially considering that traveling from Germany to France just out of necessity takes a lot out of me. I was really worried that an intercontinental flight would be so much worse. And dreading being in the States and dealing with the culture shock, dealing with different types of foods and different standards of regulation, and figuring out what I can eat and where I can find food that I can eat, having the energy to prepare it on top of having jet lag, and being around people who are very unsupportive and causing a lot of stress, and feeling trapped in that situation, not able to get around easily without having a car, like, you know, because public transportation is not what it is in Europe, and yeah, not having control over my life. And a lot of these concerns were rationally based, they're coming from experience, but it was just so bad that in the rare moment where I would get to the point of saying, okay, I'm gonna go, and I was at peace with that decision, I would very quickly start to panic a bit and be looking for any excuse I could find not to go. Around the time I recorded that last video, I was again trying to figure out if I could plan a trip soon, and at some point it looked like I wasn't going to make it, and I actually didn't feel relieved. I felt like I wanted to fight to make it happen somehow, because I felt like it had been so long that it was time for me to finally go, and it was the right time to go, and even if I didn't stay, I needed to at least go and see how it goes before I can really move forward with my life. So I finally did book a ticket, and I was kind of looking for any sort of excuse not to go, but I still wasn't feeling panicked about it, and I did it, and I felt fine about it. I was stressing about a few other things and thinking that, you know, maybe there would be an issue so that I wouldn't actually be able to take the flight. I didn't even have a passport when I booked my flight, and I was thinking maybe I won't be able to get one in time, and I won't be able to go even if I want to, and thinking that I would feel relieved if I didn't get my passport. I finally did get a passport, and I felt relieved that I did get it. And yeah, so I am in the States now, and I have been for about 4 weeks. Yeah, and some of the things I was concerned about ended up not happening. Others have happened, but emotionally, I feel fine right now. I've definitely experienced a lot of culture shock. There's a lot of things that I completely forgot about and just seems so strange, but I don't have that feeling of being really uncomfortable, like I just need to get out of here right away. So I'm doing okay, I'm really calm, and again, I really feel that I am back to my calm, rational self now that I have this IUD out of me. So again, if you've experienced something similar to this, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know that I'm not the only one who's gone through this. In 4 weeks, on February 22nd, Uninvisible will be having its 1-year anniversary. I would love to reach 1,000 subscribers by then. I know that's a bit overambitious, but if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up too, and let everyone else know you liked it. And I will see you guys next week.